of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice President Beeler. Welcome everybody to tonight's very special meeting of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees. We call this meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Board members, do you have any additions or changes to tonight's proposed agenda? Hearing none, administration?
The administration has no changes.
Then do I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's special meeting on November the 29th, 2021 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, vote nay. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Well, we want to welcome everybody who's joined us here in the boardroom, as well as everybody who has chosen to spend their Monday night with us watching via our live YouTube feed. This special meeting of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees has been called for the purpose of interviewing applicants for the Penn Township vacancies resulting from the recent resignations of Mrs. J. Galloway and Mr. Jamie Woods. Many qualified candidates submitted their applications for consideration by the board. There are 8 applicants that have been selected to participate in the interview process. The applicants who are being interviewed tonight are Mrs. Ann Bolster, Mr. Vance Cole, Mr. Robert Hyde, Mrs. Ashley Leader, and Mr. Ryan McCullough. Applicants being interviewed tomorrow night are Mrs. Michelle Peters, Mr. Andrew Tipton, and Mr. James Turnwald. The board will meet in a special meeting of the Board of School Trustees on Wednesday, December the 1st at 8 a.m. to publicly vote on the replacements for Mr. Woods and Mrs. Galloway. I do want to take a moment on behalf of the administration and on the board to publicly thank everybody who submitted an application for one of these 2 open positions. As I indicated, we received many highly qualified applications, and the board was very impressed, and the administration was very impressed with those applications that we received. It takes a lot of fortitude to put your name down on paper saying, I'd like to fill that public vacancy and be a public servant. And we sincerely appreciate from the bottoms of our hearts, everybody who took the time to submit an application. Moving to tonight's agenda, I'd like to welcome and call up Mrs. Ann Bolster to the special meeting this evening. We thank you, Ann, for preparing your resume and your letter of interest. The information you shared has been very helpful for the board in preparing for tonight's meeting. So I would like to start just simply going left to right by asking the fellow board members to introduce themselves, followed by an introduction of Superintendent Gary Thacker.
Hello, my name is Jim Garrett.
I'm Larry Beeler.
I'm Christopher Riley.
I'm Angie Gates. I'm Claire Roach.
I'm Jeff Johnson.
I'm Jerry Tucker, superintendent.
So following opening comments from Mrs. Bolster, board members will ask individual questions of you, but just to get the conversation started, what we're going to do is we'll take some time just for you to introduce yourself to us, tell us issues of importance to you, and any insights that you have to share about your qualifications, your experience to serve on the board.
Thank you. So the qualifications that I would bring to the PHM school board, over the past 15 years, I've worked in education as a teacher. I've also worked with teachers. I have a bachelor's in English and linguistics from UCLA and my certificate of teaching English to speakers of other languages from that university. I also have my master's in education from the University of California, San Diego, and received my elementary teaching credential there as well. I've taught a variety of subjects as an elementary school teacher, a middle school teacher, a K-12 art teacher, and an ENL teacher. That's English or EFL, English for for new learners or for English learners, students who are coming and learning English, as well as teaching adult English learners, working with other teachers and professionals who work with children. Currently, I work with Family Connections, which is a local nonprofit as an assessor and a coach with South Bend City Schools and with Boys and Girls Club of St. Joseph County. Through these experiences, I know the importance of having a strong and supportive school and district culture, and in continuously seeking out the best practices and diverse opportunities to enrich education for students. My experiences have also helped me in working with a variety of personalities and listening to varied opinions on educational issues. I have experience in socioeconomically diverse schools and education systems in different districts, states, and countries. And these experiences have led me to be reflective on school issues and on best practices and priorities in education. I also have experience in PHM schools because I have 2 children in PHM schools. I have a daughter who is a 5th grader at Walt Disney Elementary School and a son who is a 6th grader at Penn. I was on the PTO board for 3 years there, as 2 years as vice president, and I guess a half a year as president. My family took a sabbatical to Spain for the second half of that year. And then I was also on the PHM forum for 2 years. I have also volunteered in classrooms and in girls' middle elementary school. And so I can keep going, but I'm not sure if I should stop there, Mr. Riley.
That's okay. Each board member has been assigned a question to ask each one of the applicants, and the questions will be the same for each applicant. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Gates.
So thank you. You touched on a lot of your qualifications. Are there any particular qualifications that you would bring to the board that you didn't mention that you'd like to add?
See, I think that having been a teacher and worked with teachers and also been a parent, I come in with just a real dedication and passion for what happens in education.
Mr. Beeler.
Mrs. Bolster, what motivates you to become a school board member?
Thank you. I want to become a school board member to ensure that my children and all students within the PHM schools have access to an excellent and comprehensive educational experience. I want our district culture to be one where all students and teachers feel safe and like they are valued members of their school community. And I grew up in the United States in a family that had a strong focus on education and experience navigating the US education system. I was a strong student, but I also benefited from my family knowing how to help me reach my educational and career goals. Two of my aunts were administrators. My grandfather was a high school vice principal and track coach, and my mom was an art teacher. And so they really knew how to get me to those places. And then from my experiences overseas in other education systems, and then from working with adult English learners here who have kids in local schools, from working with families whose goal it is to give their kids the best possible education, but they're not necessarily familiar with the steps to get their students there, I really see how important it is to give families the tools they need to access, not only to have those opportunities available, but to help families know how to access those opportunities for their children and to know which community resources are available for children and family. And PHM has a reputation for excellence as a district, and I would love to be part of helping it to continuously improve in providing teachers and staff with the necessary support and resources to teach and guide students in best practices.
Thank you.
Mr. Garrett.
Hello, how are you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
What do you see, as the biggest issues facing Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation, and what can you do to help? Try to limit it to 15 or 20. Just trying to lighten things.
I'll limit it to 2. How's
Right.
that?
That's even better.
The first one, there's a lack of universal visual arts education at the elementary level.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Will you
Oh,
repeat
sorry.
that?
There's a lack of universal visual arts education at the elementary level in PHM. visual arts education at an elementary level allows students another avenue to practice developing developmentally crucial skills such as fine motor skills, critical thinking skills, spatial awareness, and analysis skills. It emphasizing and allowing students to have that creative expression as well as having art for its own sake is vital and developmentally important for young people. And I was an art teacher and I'm a daughter of an art teacher, and I saw my best and most focused students were not necessarily the same students who were excelling in other academic subjects. And for those students, having art was an opportunity to show their best and see their potential and value. And there were other students who excelled at every other academic subject, and art was a struggle for them. And for those students too, it's important for that they had that chance to practice perseverance and flexibility and observation skills. Becoming confident and seeing what we can improve on are those growth mindset skills that we want our students to have. And those are many area school districts do provide elementary art with a dedicated art teacher. And some PHM elementary schools provide, have successful volunteer run art programs, Art Smart, and I believe one or two have raised money through their PTOs to hire an art teacher, but that's not the universal experience for PHM students, and I really feel that it should be. Another issue that I feel PHM is facing is safety. Just the need for students to feel safe, not only physically, but also feeling that they have a sense of belonging and value in their schools at the classroom level, not only at the classroom level, but at the school and district level. And schools should be a place where students feel valued, accepted, and safe. And I know that that's a cornerstone within the PHM model, but I also think it's something that PHM needs to continue to strive to improve. And when students or families bring up issues, it's really important as a board and as a board member to be there as an ear and say, okay, this is an issue that's come up with so many families. How are we going to recognize and meet their students' needs? And as a district, schools and athletic fields and fine art spaces are places where students can practice responsibility and cooperation and respectful responses towards others. And I think that not only is that a safety in schools issue, but that's a long-term issue of creating responsible and respectful citizens and people who we want to be a part of our community. And I think that it starts at the school level.
Ms. Roach.
Mrs. Bolster, what do you see as your role in supporting excellence in all areas of the school corporation, including academics, extracurricular activities, and facilities?
Thank you. As a board member, my role in supporting excellence would be in looking at academics, extracurricular activities, and facilities, and to find the best balance in using the district's financial resources and support for our students, teachers, staff, and family. And just being well informed on what's happening in PHM schools and really dedicating myself to providing resources and opportunities for kids to thrive. Having wonderful facilities and having clean facilities is so important for kids to feel safe, to feel like this is a space where they're ready to learn. And I think part of that comes in supporting teachers and staff, especially right now. It's been a really long year and a half for educators. And I know at Disney, we've always been thankful for their teachers for their above and beyond dedication. We've had creative, welcoming teachers who look for the best ways to reach their students academically, and also facilities staff who have made such a positive role in making sure that everything's ready to go so our students can learn and so they can excel in their extracurriculars as well. And Extracurriculars are vital for so many students because it's where they find their mentorship, where they practice cooperation, where they learn about teamwork, where they cultivate friendships that are lifelong and learn how to work with other people. And I think just making sure as a board member that I'm listening and that I'm paying attention, and that when there's a need, that we're looking at what resources are available and how to meet those needs.
Walter, what do you see as the role of the school board member in supporting parent and community involvement within Penn-Harris-Madison schools?
So many amazing things happen at PHM schools, and I think that two of the roles of a school board member is not only to be active in attending PHM school events, but also to be a vocal cheerleader for the accomplishments in PHM schools. In addition to athletic and art events and individual school events, there are so many amazing community outreach events that take place. I know the English Learner Department does a community connections fair every year, which is exceptional, and it connects PHM families with resources in the community. And just highlighting events like Walt Disney's Culture Night, where schools and families celebrate the rich cultural backgrounds and heritages of students in the schools. I also think that an important role of a school board member is to be approachable. I think it's important to listen to any PHM community member, regardless of opinion. Diversity of thought and respectful dialogue are so central in reflective decision-making and in continuing PHM success.
Thank you for that. That concludes the questions that the board members have been assigned to ask you. I want to give you an opportunity to ask the board members or the administration any questions that you might have.
So what have been the highlights for you of being a school board member? What do you see your role as being within the PHM community?
I'll start.
Okay.
As a parent and a school board member, one of the things that I've really enjoyed personally is hearing about some of the opportunities and just kind of before I had a high schooler, like understanding the things that were going on in the high school, and just there are so many opportunities within the school system. So it was really great to kind of hear about those ahead of time and think like, oh, I should tell this kid about that and that kid. And then graduation, just kind of like why we do what we do, kind of seeing that at the end of the year. It's such a special time and such an honor to get to be a part of what this administration team does. That's been a special experience too. And I have really enjoyed the times when I have had the opportunity to connect people with the right, like I like being a wealth of knowledge kind of within PHM. And so it's really neat when somebody can say like, oh, you told me to check that out or talk to that person and I did, and I got plugged in, or thanks for telling us about that program, and just seeing people get to take advantage of all the amazing things. Like you mentioned, being a cheerleader for PHM is a very large part of this role, and so that's neat. And then seeing some of the things that we hear about and get to vote on come to it's really special.
I can't agree more with Mrs. Gates' observation about commencement. When you think about everything that we do as school board members, from voting on particular building construction contracts to participating in policy making, making sure that the physical security of our buildings is up to par. You think about all of the details that we attend to. It all comes into fruition as we get the distinct privilege of sitting on that stage as students who we've been with most of their academic careers walk across, and we give them what is supposed to be their diploma, but don't tell anybody, it's just a cardboard folder. But it is all I can do emotionally to keep it together during commencement, because that's exactly why we do it. I've had the privilege of being on this board for about 10 years. Some of the students who now are walking across the stage and accepting the the diploma folder from me have been in PHM school district since they were in the 2nd grade. And that is a real moment of awareness and awakening and fulfillment when we get to participate in something like that.
Yes.
What I would say, I've been around a long time. When I got on the board, PHM had the highest tax rate in St. Joe County. The taxes were exceptionally high, and I come from a tax group. And so I have worked hard my whole career here on to get us to the lowest tax rate, with the help of excellent administration and some excellent business managers. And I also did help with the academy structure at the high school. I was on the committee and traveled around, and I think very proud that this academy system, it was a Bill Gates
I remember the small
no,
schools
but-
program. Yeah.
to our advantage. We did not have to keep, they give it up.
Mhm.
We didn't have to follow all the rules, which were the academies had to be pure, which meant they had to take at least 4 subjects in each academy. And I know Dr. Thacker and I sat down at a school board convention, and there was a school corporation in Houston, Texas, that didn't have the small learning grant. And she made the comment, the superintendent, that they didn't have to follow all those rules, and that's why she felt theirs was so far superior. So I think Penn is patented after school corporation in Houston, where kids can be in the academy they want.
Mhm.
And they're taking, they can take subjects in a lot of the other academies.
I know that system. That system is, I looked having younger kids at a high school of 4,000 people, hearing about that as part of PHM Forum. I took a deep sigh of relief and went, oh my gosh, okay. I think we can handle that. 4,000 is big. It's a great way to make it smaller.
Do you have any
Yeah.
other?
Oh, sorry. I was gonna let Jim, let Mr. Garrett, do you want to ask something?
You better put me on a timer. I started teaching at Penn, or actually Mccullough Middle School in 1971, and taught in the Penn system for 43 years. During that time, I've experienced all the highs and lows. I've seen the growth. I've seen Penn go from a school that was made fun of, and people would wear their old, what do you call it, bib overalls, make fun of the country school, until it's like they all hate us, but they all wish they were us. So that's where we're at right now. And you know, to say that we've seen the successes we have, it's unbelievable. And again, we've had great leadership, and continue with Dr. Thacker here, what he's done over the last many years. Like Larry said, we now have the lowest tax rate, but we also have the highest salaries. So we get the most out of what we get, and that's the way things are. We don't, you know, so we never think about what we don't have. We take what we do have and make the best of it. But you know, as far as I'm just a total Penn person. I bleed black and gold. I have for many years. I was even accused one time of wearing black and gold underwear from a parent from another school. So you know, that's how much I love this corporation. And when I decided to run for school board, what I wanted to do is to give back a little bit on what I had taken from Penn, and I wanted to not just be a taker, but I wanted to be a giver. So I'm hoping that in my way, I'm able to do that. So again, thank you for your application. I really appreciate your answers, and look forward to hearing what Claire has to say.
Well, I'm the newbie on the school board, so it's really only been a couple of months for me, but you know, I believe public education is a treasure. It's a gem that America has given to the rest of the world, the concept. And so it is, I think it was Mr. Riley that said it was a privilege. It's a privilege to represent the community. And, you know I can speak for all of my fellow board members that we don't agree on 100% of it, but I think we're probably in agreement for about 97% of it. And that's the dedication to strengthening and sustaining the work that happens here. And I think the motto is excellence happens here. I would add the clause, and it doesn't happen by accident. And if you looked at my body language for any of these YouTube videos, you see me lean forward whenever there's an instructional presentation. That's been really exciting for me, just to see the high level of practice and the background knowledge, the extensive background knowledge that our educators have. So that's been really, that's a very fun part of the job. The other thing that I would add that I'm not sure I fully appreciated before joining the board, which is the privilege to be a part of democracy in action. And, it's obviously been a very difficult year for communities and school boards. I say difficult, but really challenging. There's been a lot of unprecedented things to navigate. And, but when you look at both the way the community has engaged and the way we've engaged here, it's not always easy, but I think it's the way our founders designed these processes to have, I think you said respectful dialogue, the tension between, either end that keeps us somewhere in the middle and keeps everybody accountable for the perspective of others. And that's been, it's probably maybe taken a year or two off my life, but it's really been, it's extraordinary to be part of that. And it's an honor to represent one's community. So that's what I would add.
Do you have any other questions for the board of the administration?
Not at the moment, thank you. I know you have 4 other people to interview this
Well,
evening.
that's okay.
so-
We have a few more minutes left of time. We'd like to spend it with each one of our candidates as much as we can to get to know you. So let me ask you this. We did ask you 5 pre-prepared questions. Was there anything that you weren't asked that you would like to add for us to consider when evaluating your candidates?
I can't think of anything at the moment, but if anyone has an additional question, please feel free to ask me.
Well, Mrs. Bolster, thank you so much.
It's so nice to
We
meet you all.
sincerely appreciate your application.
you.
We sincerely appreciate your time.
Have a good evening.
You have one evening too. The board will stand in recess for approximately 10 minutes, at which time we'll reconvene.
When is the next meeting? 6:40, 6:50.
Board of School Trustees and to the public. It is now 7:43, and we will reconvene the special meeting of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees. The next applicant that we have is Mr. Vance Cole. Mr. Cole, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Come on up, sir. Mr. Cole, on behalf of the administration and the Board of School Trustees, welcome. And thank you so much for submitting your application. Just open up the opportunity for you just to share some general background about yourself, some information about you, and the reasons why you're interested in becoming a member of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees.
Yes, thank you. Superintendent Thacker, Board, President Riley. First thing I have to acknowledge Coach Garrett, as I know him. He was a great influence early on in my life. I don't know if I've ever really had the opportunity to voice that to him, but I'd like to take the opportunity to thank him now.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Glad it worked out well.
Yes, he's a great mentor, great individual, and I'm very pleased to be here and to be able to voice that to him.
I'm glad you sent in an application. It's great.
Thank you, Coach. Just a little bit of a background on myself, and I put this in my letter, and I believe it to my core. I am Kingsman through and through. A little background, I'm 48 years old. I lived in Penn District outside of some military service for all my life. Started off in kindergarten, first grade at Elsie Rogers. I was the first group then to go through Bittersweet Elementary. I went through Schmucker, and proud graduate of Penn. So I absolutely bleed black and gold. I don't have any black and gold underwear. I heard that mentioned earlier, but I'll get to work on that. As far as reasons for being here, I've throughout my life served through military, through the police world. A call to service is something that's just ingrained in me. I promised my wife when I left law enforcement world that I was done with any public service. As you see, I managed to keep my word for a shade less than 90 days, and here I am looking for that opportunity to serve once again. I've heard it said that school board service is the closest to home, purest form of democracy in the United States, and I truly believe that. I think no one has the ability to touch young lives like school board members. I believe this is ground zero. So thank you all for doing what you do, and I hope to join you in that service as well.
Terrific. Thank you, sir. Our school board members have each been assigned a question to ask you. So Mrs. Cates, we'll start with you.
Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
What particular qualifications would you bring to the PHM board?
I think I have a pretty diverse background. While I have been in the law enforcement community for over 20 years, I simultaneously am also in the business world. After I graduated from Penn, I joined the Marine Corps. Actually, I joined that call to service. I joined as a junior in high school where my parents had to sign off. So I knew immediately once I was done with school where I wanted, what my goals were. When you are in the military, particularly in the Marine Corps, we have a saying that everyone's green. So we're all alike. You may be a lighter shade of green or a darker shade of green, but everyone's treated the same. I know today we have lots of terms that we use: equity, diversity, inclusion. For me, that was all ingrained in me with what we were taught, which is to work as a team, to see everyone as equals, to seek input. Not only seek input, but to seek help when you need it. So I think throughout my military service, I was taught a brand of leadership that is very down to earth. It's very blue collar, and I believe that it works. And I've used it from everywhere to the corporate world where I work, and I also use it in the law enforcement world. And it is tried and true. It works.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Beeler.
Mr. Cole, what motivates you to become a school board member?
That's actually an excellent question. I'm glad you asked that. Going back to what I mentioned before, working as part of a team. I mean, while we were all individuals, that's undeniable. Working as part of a team and being able to collaborate with others who may be of different backgrounds, even in this particular room, is something that motivates me greatly. Trying to solve problems, solving problems that don't always have an easy answer, and they may not even always have a great answer. I like the idea of being able to test myself to see if I have that ability to work with others to get those kinds of solutions to the problems that they're not static, they're ever evolving. I am a dad of 2 boys in Moran. So I have a 2nd grader and I have a 5th grader. So when you talk about motivation to be here, when I first mentioned this to my wife, the first thing that my 7-year-old said was, "Dad, you've got to do it." My 11-year-old, as is his way, immediately said, "Don't do it. Don't do it." So as boys will be, that was one of the things that I really dealt with in the house. Again, on top of telling my wife, maybe I'm done with the public service stuff. But supporting my kids and having the ability to be on the front lines to help them academically, most importantly, but emotionally, throughout their development, is just why I'm here. I believe I'm a good dad. I hope that would also maybe help project to helping other kids, because look, we know that there are going to be situations where there are children who maybe don't have the resources, whether you're talking parental, whether you're talking financial, whether you're talking just natural ability, that they're going to need that support elsewhere. And I think that's where we come in. That's why I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Garrett?
Oh, yes. Mr. Cole, what do you see as the biggest issues facing Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation, and what can you do to help?
Sure. I think the big thing that needs to be recognized is, prior to COVID, 20 months ago, when it really started to hit home, the school board had their hands full with all of these other issues, whether you're talking fiscal, busing, everything that is already on your plate was there. And I'm sure those of you, I know that we have a lot of tenure here, I'm sure that that job was not easy back then. I can't imagine how difficult it is now. So I think we have to address the elephant in the room, the COVID pandemic. And I think as we go forward, we can probably all recognize that COVID is going to be endemic, meaning it's not going anywhere. It's a bad neighbor with a 30-year mortgage. It's not going anywhere. And I think looking at it through that lens is important. I think fair or unfair, and I won't wade too far into that because my feeling is it's pretty unfair, but I think school boards across the country, because of a few bad apples, maybe have an image problem, which is sad to see. Because again, this is ground zero of our community. So I think that's one of the big problems that's out there. While I haven't been in attendance physically at the meetings, I watch them on live stream and I watch them on YouTube. You know, I saw Mr. Deal and a few others who spoke at the last meeting. And some of the things that were brought up, I believe one gentleman's mentioned the CRT issue. Obviously we had the masking issue. You know, those things are all still on the table and they're all evolving. So I believe that those are some of the biggest issues that we have, but I think more than anything, some of the issues around communication and making sure that that line is open. Now, we all know that these are open meetings, but how we get it out there to the public that they need to be involved. So maybe there are some steps that can be taken to help address that. You know, we know it, just because something is public, we have 20 people in the room, how many people out there didn't know that this is going on right now? And those are, I think, the big issues that we're facing. I think some of the idea out there, because I'm out talking to a lot of people about this stuff, which is one of the reasons I'm here. Some of the misconceptions is that school boards are full of professors and lawyers, and the term I heard, which I just despise, is elites. I despise that term being thrown about in this realm. But I think some of those perceptions and how we get out there and change those with the public and show them that you all are doing great work and you're doing it for the right reasons, which are our kids. That's important. So those would, I think, be the biggest issues that we have as a school board.
Mr. Cole? I've got the longest question, so
Okay.
I'll repeat it if you want a second, go at it. What do you see as your role in supporting excellence in all areas of the school corporation, including academics, extracurricular activities, and facilities?
Sure. So I guess first of all, with the academic side of things, I think like any parent, the first thing that I can do as a parent is be involved, is to look at all of the issues, starting from the ones inside my four walls, try to project how that would be in other people's households. When it comes to academics, certainly looking at curriculum, what is being taught is always going to be an important thing. You don't really know what exactly is being taught unless you're involved, unless you're invested in what your children are looking at. And I think that all starts at home. I'm sorry, the second part?
Yeah. So.
Yes, you're right, because you had the
Yeah,
long part.
no, when I read it the first time, I got caught on it a little bit.
Okay.
Made me realize how long it is. Okay. So what do you see as your role in supporting excellence in all areas of our school corporation? Academics, extracurriculars, and facilities.
Okay. With academics, I also think that just presence is huge. Whether you're talking about, I think it's easy for someone like myself. I'm kind of a sports guy. That part of it comes natural to me, but getting people like myself who are willing to be involved in one way, getting them to be involved in another. Maybe you have a hesitant person who maybe doesn't quite feel as comfortable in the realm of dipping their toes into the academic side of things. Getting involvement, getting stakeholders who are willing to go in and maybe get uncomfortable. When it comes to extracurricular activities, I'm the guy that's at March Madness coaching the little kids. I'm at Penn Wrestling Club trying to get other parents maybe who are a little bit hesitant to get kids involved in the program. When it comes to extracurriculars, whether you're talking the band, whether you're talking sports, chess club, I don't care what it is. I think it's an undeniable fact that the more kids are involved in those programs, the better they will do academically. It holds them accountable. It helps hold their parents accountable. And it helps give children a motivation. It teaches them how to work. Coach Garrett taught me how to work. And again, when I was mentioning him earlier, that's the kind of thing that as a young man, I needed that kind of an influence. I mean, and that carried on through Coach Giesman, Coach Yeoman, all of those people who were influential in my life. But I think involvement and, again, finding like-minded people to put your parents and then get them with their children. You know, when you get like-minded, goal-oriented people together, it magnifies in scope. And I think that's something that's very, very important. When it comes to facilities, that is something I will admit I would love and I hope to get to learn more about in how the school board directly impacts the facilities. I will tell you, when Penn High School was first being rebuilt, I remember the old Penn High School. I remember the green floors and the old weight room that was not even the size of this room. Mr. Garrett, I know you know, Coach. I remember literally being in the classroom during the rebuild, you know, having 3 walls and wearing a coat and hat. I remember all of those days. And I remember thinking as the high school itself was being upgraded and rebuilt, what a great opportunity that was going to be. And once it was completed, you know, it was fantastic. So that's something, you know, granted, I don't think that there's anything that huge in our future upcoming. But when it comes to facilities, I certainly recognize that environment is a huge factor.
Ms. Roach and Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole, what do you see as a role of a school board member in supporting parent and community involvement with Penn-Harris-Madison schools?
I'm sorry, can you?
What do you see as the role of a school board member in supporting parent and community involvement within Penn-Harris-Madison schools?
Okay, thank you. I believe just being there, your presence, making sure that you're involved, not just at sporting events, but academic events. I think being out there, being seen, being open to listen to feedback, whether that feedback be good or bad. Again, not in the job, but I can imagine that you folks have to deal with a lot. And I'm positive in 2021 that it's not all great. So I think it takes a little bit of bravery. I don't think that you could be a coward being in this job. And that's not something that I take lightly, as far as being willing to go out there and listen, to solicit feedback, not just take it when it's offered or yelled at me, but go out there and talk to people. Getting back to what I was mentioning earlier, I'm the dad at sporting events with my son, and I'm talking to their parents. I'm the guy that walks, when a kid walks by, I know who that kid is. Why? Because my son wrestled him 4 years ago. I remember his name. I talked to his parents. I asked them, what are you thinking about this? And it's not always just sports, right? I think being out there in extracurriculars is extremely important, because again, whether you're talking about being out there at field day at the school, your face is seen, it's known. I think that familiarity is what's going to breed that kind of communication, that open line of communication that we all hope that we can get.
Thank you, sir. Well, we've had an opportunity to ask questions of you, and each one of us asked assigned questions. Do you, Mr. Cole, have any questions to ask either the board or the administration?
I do. I would ask for whoever wants to answer it, hopefully maybe more than one of you, but what would you say during your time on the board has been your greatest success? And also maybe what is the biggest opportunity that you haven't quite met yet that would be something you would look to in the future?
I went last time. Last time. I feel like it's my duty to go first this time.
Ms. Roach.
Reciprocity, fairness.
Right.
We did commit to fairness in this process. Mr. Cole, you recognize that this is an extraordinary time for our country, for the world, for school boards. And I think one of the successes of all of us up here was to maintain a level of respect and appreciation for all of us. Because you've watched it, we haven't always agreed on everything. But between the 5 of us, the 7 of us when we were 7, even if we were honest and, sort of in the trenches of democracy, I think there was an understanding that everybody was coming with good intentions. That has gotten us through all of this when it's easy and when it's hard. And, I think we'd like to take credit. Some of it's just serendipity sometimes, But
Sure.
I feel like people are watching, and so when we've maintained that level of respect for each other and anchored ourselves in appreciation for the diversity of experience that we all have, that helps a community navigate what's crazy and hard and unprecedented. So that's something I'm sort of, I hate to say proud of, because I don't think we're there yet, but I've appreciated. I look forward to the days when we're not talking about COVID. One of the areas for opportunity I'd really like to see us strengthen our sort of supports for the whole child. So ensuring that from K up to 12, our students as children are thriving, because we've thought of the many different things that they need that's within our purview.
Sure.
To help support, and that we're not just thinking about them as students of math, but as human beings that deserve care and, all the support and advocacy that we can give them. So I'm looking forward to asking more questions about how many psychologists do we have on staff, and, so that's what I'm looking forward to. Thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, I like the phrase of being intentional. That's something that really speaks to me. So yeah, I appreciate that. That really says a lot. So thank you.
I can speak to what, and this was maybe kind of in your question, but the hardest thing, and I think this would be helpful to know as a parent, I think the hardest thing for me is at times when I don't have to, but when I vote for what is best for the school district, but it's not what's best for my kid or what I want. And so sometimes when I look at everything or it's presented as an administration, I might think like, my goodness, I would really like some uniforms for my 7 children, like things like that aren't necessarily like on the agenda or what we're voting on. So I think the hardest thing is when I can look at a situation and say, and hear the input from the administration and say, the best thing for our school system is A, even though the best thing in my own home is B. And so I will vote A, when I think it's the best thing for the collective district, even if it's not the best thing for my kid. So like that kind of stinks, and it's hard.
It's got to be hard viewing it like through the different lenses,
Yeah.
right? Having to
So
kind of
that's the hardest.
quickly go from one to the other, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that's been the hardest part of being on board for me.
Yes. I have to tell people it's kind of like half of the bar exam, where you're given a multiple choice question to which there are 5 potential answers and all 5 are wrong. And your job is to pick the least wrong of the 5 wrong answers and hope you get right the least wrong of the 5 wrong answers. Over the last couple of years, we have been presented on a number of occasions 5 just crummy answers as solutions to ever-growing, ever-evolving, ever-changing problems, and have had often on the fly to pick the least wrong of those and go with it and commit to that as being our decision. But to answer your question, I think Mrs. Gates and Ms. Roach adequately put things into context over the last 2 years relative to what we've dealt with COVID. When you ask, what do you think back on as being your biggest accomplishments? We all tend to have short memories in the sense that we think back over the last year or two. Well, we've had national tragedies that have occurred during my tenure on the school board. Sandy Hook was one of them. In 2014, when that happened, the Sandy Hook tragedy really opened our eyes to our own security vulnerabilities in terms of having classrooms that were open concept that allowed, you're in law enforcement,
Yeah.
that allowed the shooter to move quite swiftly from room to room. The administration did not sit around and let the grass grow, neither did the school board. I would say it was within months that we had approved a brand new comprehensive building restructuring program so that we could reduce the risk that our students were facing unbeknownst to us before Sandy Hook happened. And it's those sorts of things that we have to be prepared to act upon and act upon swiftly. And I look back at that, despite all of the occurrences that have happened over the last 2 years, and think to myself, that really opened our eyes, and we moved fast because we didn't want to take another chance of our kids being at an unnecessary risk.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. I think we can all agree that that's a huge win. Huge win.
Well, one of the things of being on the school board is all the great people you get to work with. I mean, I've worked with so many board members and they all come from diverse areas, and it seemed like one thing that PHM has had boards that work together. I've seen South Bend self-destruct because of the board. I've seen Mishawaka get in a horrible position because boards couldn't work together. And I think the one thing that's been true at PHM is that the boards always found a way to work together.
That's great.
And one of my concerns is tip. That you got to realize 13% of our assessed value is tipped, yet we got the lowest tax rate. But I don't trust the people in the tips. They do sneaky things down in Indianapolis if you don't know. So you got to keep watching them.
Well, I'll make sure I get your ear a little bit if I get the opportunity to serve. Maybe get a cup of coffee. You can tell me about it.
Okay.
Well, I'd say my 5 years on the board that I've been very proud to have been part of all the growth that we've had with the facilities, building of the new locker room at the football stadium, all the new turf that we put in so that we can use the facilities year round all the time. If it rains, we're not going to be shut out, so kids can use that stuff all the time. New weight rooms, the new biology labs. So our building projects have been awesome and needed, and we need to do more, of course. But and we've been able to do it in a budgetary way that we haven't had to raise taxes or anything like that. So I've been proud to be able to be a part of that. Albeit I didn't do much. I just voted yes, but I guess that's part of it. I'm pretty good at voting yes. But on the same token, I've had a few situations that I feel that I kind of have not produced the way I should have. I wish I can, and I'll try to do more for our teachers going forward. I know we do a lot. We try to make them the highest paid in the area, but there are other things that go on in the classroom and the atmosphere and things like that. I believe our teachers are the key to the success of our school. And if we don't have good teachers, or if we don't have happy teachers, I mean, it's hard to have a happy student if your teachers aren't very happy.
Yes.
So I think that making sure that they are taken care of, motivated, and made to feel like that they're appreciated, I think that's a very important part of what school boards do. We set the tone for that. And which, again, now this is something that really frustrates me, because I'm not the kind of guy that sits around and watches things happen. I like to get things done. But as a school board member, I've had to learn that, our job is not to manage. Our job is to set policy, right? And then someone else gets to manage. Well, that's hard for me because, I think you know me well enough to know that I'm a hands-on kind of guy.
Yes.
And I like to get in there and mix it up a little bit. So, I guess I'm growing into my sedentary role a little bit. It's hard for me, but the people we work with, our board members, great people. And as we said before, sometimes we look like we just always vote yes and everything, but that's not really what happens. Behind the scenes, we have our battles, but when we try to come together as a group and as a unit and to show solidarity. Not all the time, but probably 99% of the time. So it's a great position. I think you can add a lot of meaning, and you can be very productive as a school board member, coming in with the right attitude, the right effort, and knowing that do all you can, but there's some things we just have to let somebody have to let someone else do it. That's hard for me, but maybe, you know, some people can handle it. I'm not too good at it.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Mr. Cole, any other questions for the board and the administration?
No, no questions. I just want to say thank you once again for letting me have the opportunity and the privilege to be here to speak to you all. It's been an honor.
You are quite welcome, sir. And before we let you go for the evening, I know that you were asked 5 questions that were pre-prepared. Are there any other facts that you would like us to take into consideration in evaluating your application?
No other facts that I haven't already mentioned. However, I will say that I can't promise you if I'm appointed to one of these positions that that I'll be the best board member. I probably suffer from some of the same issues as Coach Garrett. I'm a hands-on kind of guy. But what I will promise you all is that you will get no less than 100% effort. I don't do anything halfway. So I'm absolutely willing to study every issue that comes before me, to weigh it, look through the lens of not only what happens in my own house, but how it affects everyone. And I promise you that if I'm given that opportunity, you won't regret it.
Mr. Cole, on behalf of the administration, on behalf of the board, thank you so much, not only for your application to serve as a member of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees, but also, sir, for your commitment and your service to our community and our country. We thank you very much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks.
The board will stand in recess for approximately 10 to 15 minutes, at which time we'll reconvene. Administration, members of the public who have joined us, before we proceed and reconvene, is our YouTube feed up and running? I noticed that the screen is out here in the boardroom.
Oh, she came in and turned it off.
I'll double check. I noticed that. I didn't say anything, but I did notice that last. Yes, it's working.
Okay, great. We're confirmed that the YouTube feed is up and running, so we'll reconvene. The time is 7:35. And we'll move on to our next candidate. Who is Mr. Robert Hyde. Mr. Hyde, are you ready to proceed, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hyde, thank you so much for your application to the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees. I want to give you an opportunity to tell the board why you've applied, what your goals are, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then as you know, each board member will ask you a separate question.
Absolutely. A little bit about myself. I've heard all the previous great candidates had the rich PHM tradition they've experienced. I was born and raised on the west side of South Bend, so I had a little bit of a different PHM observation. So it was more so one of envy, and even for the sporting, one of rival. So, but as far as me, born and raised in South Bend, went to Washington High School, then went to undergrad at Notre Dame, and then got my MBA from Notre Dame as well. So nice, you have to do it twice. So I spent the vast majority of my financial career in Chicago. But what kind of reconnected me with PHM is that on moving back to South Bend, before my wife and I decided to move back once we started to have a family, I said, if I move back to South Bend, we got to be in PHM. So that's where the connection comes at. I am a PHM dad of two, one who's not in here, not in school yet, but you guys are going to be in for a treat because he is the firecracker of the bunch. So that's essentially, I've spent 15 years in wealth management. That's been the vast majority of my expertise, financial planning, which is very weird because my undergrad was in sociology. So I'm very much of a people person and community person. So I guess probably the biggest thing about me is that I like to serve. That's the biggest thing. Once we moved back to South Bend, I began to volunteer as a football coach, assistant football coach. I volunteer with Junior Achievement. And it's very different when you volunteer and you don't have a child that's playing. It's strictly for love. So, but I was assistant football coach. And then I would volunteer with Junior Achievement, volunteer with the 100 Black Band, volunteered with Salvation Army Croc Center, and all of that volunteer effort then turned into board requests. So I was able to, very proud to serve on the board for Junior Achievement, very proud to serve on the board for the YMCA Michiana prior to its merger with Southwest YMCA. I was also on the advisory board council for Salvation Army Croc Center. So pretty much a lot of service because I just like to serve. Most of that is going to be focused on kids because even as a financial services professional, as an investor, I found that the best investment is going to be kids. So that's what I do. I serve my house of 3 boys and my beautiful wife, and I serve my community as best I can.
Thank you, sir. As you know, the school board members will ask you individualized questions. Mrs. Gates.
Thank you for being here tonight. What particular qualifications would you bring to the PHM board? Touched on a few of those, but.
Absolutely, yeah. The finance and investment experience always comes into play when you're dealing with budget items. So that's the part about me that's a little bit more boring. But I appreciate the financial statement analysis portion of that. But I think also board experience. I've been the newbie in a lot of boards, and what you learn how to do is you learn how to look, listen, and learn. When you're a new person on the board, you need to make it a very concerted effort to have a posture of seeking to understand rather than be understood. So that kind of plays into, I think, a lot of kind of board dynamics and board characteristics and charisma. The next thing is decision making. And decision making is only a skill when you've had to make tough ones. So with some of the boards that I've been on, we had to make some tough decisions, some that, and I've heard one of the board members say it was all of the answers were crummy. It was the least crummy one.
Right.
So I've had to make a lot of those decisions, and I think that plays into a lot of qualifications on how you can get into a board and not necessarily invoke your own agenda, but be a fly on the wall and learn.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Beeler.
Mr. Hyde, What motivates you to become a school board member?
My kids and kids in general. My family's mission statement, which you'll probably hear me reference very frequently, is lead with love, always seek to be the best version of yourself, and inspire others to do the same. And in doing so, leave the world better than you found it. So that's what I seek to do. And one of the things, there's a story about Roger Bannister. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. So Roger Bannister, 1954, was the first man to break the 4-minute mile. It was thought until then that it was impossible to do, right? But after he broke that record, broke the 4-minute mile, thousands of people have broken it since. And even since then, I think the record is almost down like 3 minutes and 40 seconds at this point. And the reason being is because people saw that it was possible. So my kids are my number one motivation, but also I'm just a parent at heart. I'm a parent when I go home, I'm a parent when I go into work. If I can inspire other parents who want to come in and lead with love and serve, then that's all I can actually hope to do. Because that type of impact, I think, lasts way long after your board tenure. The ability to inspire others to take up the mantle.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Hyde, Mr. Garrett.
Yeah, Mr. Hyde, what do you see as the biggest issues facing PHM, and what can you do to help?
I think some of the biggest issues, without knowing the intricacies of PHM specifically, I think it's some of that most boards are facing right now, which is the health pandemic. We're in the middle of a health pandemic. We've had a lot of social unrest recently. And I think those items play into a lot of the way in which not only do parents feel like they don't have control over certain items, but we want to protect our children, and not knowing necessarily how to do that or go about that in the best way possible can become a very, very delicate line to cross. I think what I can do pretty much is that perspective. I don't assume to have more or smarter qualifications than anybody else. I just hope to add perspective, and kind of a story that I use for my kids as far as making sure that you have all perspectives of a situation. It's kind of like driving a car. You're driving a car, it's windows all around your car, but in order for you to drive safely, you have a rearview mirror. It's one perspective. You have two side mirrors, other perspectives. And then we've added features to these cars that make it even safer, right? Which is blind spot indicators, rear backup cameras. All of these things add perspective. So what I seek to just add is perspective as best I know how. I know that my experience in growing up on the west side of South Bend is going to be different. And my experiences up until this point is going to be unique to me. And hopefully I can add value by bringing that perspective to light.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Roach.
Mr. Hyde, what do you see as your role in supporting excellence in all areas of the school corporation, including academics, extracurriculars, and facilities?
Absolutely. I think the first role is probably as a fiduciary, and that's just the board financial committee person in me, making sure that we're good fiduciaries and good stewards of the resources that we have, and ensuring that we tenure those and making sure that all the faculty, staff, and students have all the necessary resources to continue to strive in excellence, and also making sure that they have all the things that they need to continue to be successful once they leave here. And I think my role within that is also to protect that, to be a good steward. And I think also a good way to kind of ensure that not only that's something that I invoke, but also being present. I think that a number of candidates have mentioned that it's also like being present and presence. So, supporting PHM and extracurriculars as much as humanly possible, to making sure that you show support not only to faculty, staff, but also students and also parents. So having that present part of the job there. I also think presence means that you're also making sure that you are well educated on all the items that come across your desk. A lot of times, especially boards, if it isn't as exciting as some of the board meetings have been, a lot of times it can get easy to get on cruise control and maybe let things slide by that maybe don't seem as big, but making sure that you ask those diligent questions, those heartfelt questions, even if those issues don't seem to be as large in the near term, or maybe down the road, those could cause catastrophic results. So,
Mr. Hyde, what is the role of school board members supporting parent and community involvement with Penn-Harris-Madison schools?
I think the first one I'll reference my family's mission statement. You got to lead with love. I've noticed that there are two most important things to families and parents. It's going to be their family, and the means in which they support that family, which is going to be their money. I've had the pleasure and the privilege to manage manage my clients' money, but I've also had the distinct honor to be able to volunteer and coach their kids, help out with their kids. So making sure that every parent has a voice, regardless of whether that voice may come across in a way that might not be as nice all the time. But as long as you're leading with love and you give everybody the space to be safe and be heard and be seen, and that includes parents, that includes students, that includes faculty, includes everyone. Everyone deserves that, and making sure that as a board member, you encourage that and you stand for it.
Mr. Hyde, we've had the opportunity to ask you some questions. Do you have any questions of the board or the administration?
Absolutely. You guys have been together for quite some time. I think Ms. Roach, you're the newbie. Okay. What do you guys see as far as some of the gaps that you would love to fill going forward for you as a whole for a board? I would think that nobody would know your blind spots better than you all. So I guess where would you see some of those opportunities that you guys can be a better board? Because obviously the board should be greater than the sum of its parts. So I'd love to hear that from you guys.
Never forget one of Ms. Roach's and my very first conversations when she was elected. I called to introduce myself, and in the context of that conversation, I said, "Now, don't be surprised when you get telephone calls from me at 10:30 p.m. or at 7 a.m. or at any time during that period of time, because over the last 2 years, we've had many conversations between board members that last late into the night or that start very, very early in the morning. Through those conversations, I don't have any preference on what people think one way or the other on how an issue should be resolved. The only thing I asked for is that people be accessible and that people be communicable and that people be responsive, so that at least the board knows what's on the table and what the administration is proposing and why. Because unless we have full understanding of what we're looking at, that's when things start to break down.
Gotcha. So, thank you.
I'm acutely aware that the shoes that I assumed were very large, and Mr. Gary Fox, he served on the board for 2 decades?
20, yeah.
Yeah, and brought a wealth of educational experience and lived experience in the realm of finance. I wish I could fill those shoes. My lowest grade at Notre Dame was accounting. So anyway, this has been an area that I know that I've had to really inform myself on. So that is, in assuming Mr. Fox's shoes, I'm aware that I don't bring the level of experience that I would like to that realm. So I'm glad you asked the question.
Thank you.
And if Mr. Fox is listening, I'm trying. Very grateful for his service and leadership.
Well, I kind of cover that area. We have a lot of schools and we have a lot of maintenance, and it's just a continuous process. And we've done a lot of good planning, but I think our plan's about at the end that we're going to have to do another strategic plan of addressing all our maintenance issues. So I see that as a continual issue that we face.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
Well, I've been on board, I'm the second newbie here in 5 years, so most of the board members been on a long time. And, but I did bring 43 years of teaching experience, so I feel like I have a connection to the classroom still. And most of my thought processes, and whenever we're dealing with issues and stuff, my first consideration is usually, how's it going to affect the students and the teachers in the classroom. To me, that's the biggest thing, because that's what we're all here for anyway, is making sure that everybody in the classroom is being treated fairly, getting equal access, making sure that everything we do, reflects our commitment to doing things like that. So we do a great job of it, but I think we can do better. And I mean, who wouldn't, try to improve? No matter how good you are, you can always get better.
Yes, sir.
So that's what we're trying to do, and that's hopefully, as we go along here, we'll be able to look at our situation, whatever it might be, and evaluate the situation and continue to improve and make sure that everybody is treated the way that they should be.
Thank you.
Ms. Gates?
Everybody kind of touched on what I was saying. You asked me a different question.
Do you have any other questions?
I do. Especially with the heavy burden, the heavy load as far as being a board member, the heavy responsibility. What, especially with how long you guys have served, what gets you up in the morning to come back and do it again? Like I know for me personally, as I referenced, my mission statement gets me up. So it didn't matter if I was volunteering for 6 junior achievement classes back to back. I knew that was a part of the mission statement. So it kind of just lives in deep. So I guess we'll get you all up individually up to come back and sit and put in the hard work.
I have a heart for serving also, and probably connected mainly to like my faith and then my family and children. So that's probably like why I am most motivated to serve in this capacity and have enjoyed it so much, and just being a voice of the community. I was hearing everything as a parent of 7 on the sidelines, and with sons and daughters and kids in the high ability classes, kids with IEPs. And so I felt like I was connecting and rubbing elbows with a lot of different parents. And so that was kind of like and I still feel like my perspective that I bring, as well as representing the consumer. Like when we make policy, I get to see what it looks like at my kitchen table, and hear about it. So that aspect, and I have enjoyed being able to serve and use my voice. I have really enjoyed that. I have also loved serving like with this board, like what Chris, I've learned so much from the people that are up here and the people that have come before them that I had an opportunity to serve with. And I really appreciated how, like Chris said, in the last 2 years, we have talked till so late at night, multiple times a day. First thing I told my husband, there was a season where I'm like, the last person I talk to every night is like Chris Riley, and he's the first person I talk to when I wake up some days. And I just appreciate his leadership. Learned so much from him and Larry and everybody on this board. It's been really neat, and it sounds like you've had those kind of experiences and and I appreciated how you said, I didn't answer the last question, but I think the being teachable and being ready to like kind of start off by a little listening, I really appreciated that, because that's kind of how I approached the board as well, as just listening a lot at the beginning, because even as a parent, I thought I knew a lot about PHM, but I didn't. I mean, the policy aspect I didn't, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, one thing that I always enjoyed was visiting the schools, different activities. I used to always go to Walt Disney's Culture Night. It was a lot of good food there. And a lot of those open houses and things. Kind of the COVID put a stop to it, and then I got a foot injury and it's hard getting around. It's getting better, so I'm hoping to get back to more events.
Wish you a speedy recovery.
I like to say that I get up every morning and believe me, I think about the school board almost every day, and do that because I have a lot of skin in the game here. I taught here for 43 years. My children went to school here. I have grandchildren here, and my wife was here. So I want to give back, and I want to make sure that all the successes, all of the great things that have been done will continue to be done into the future. And that's my goal every day, is to make sure that Penn is a better place than it was the day before. And I used to preach that to my students: make Penn a better place today than it was yesterday. And you've done a good job. So I try to live that as much as I preached it. So
Yes, sir. Thank you.
that's why I get it.
Want me to go next? Mr. Riley?
Ms. Roach?
This was a great question. I enjoyed the questions tonight. I didn't really anticipate the peppering that would come in this direction. You know, I just, when I get up in the morning, I think that our community's children, that's our shared treasure. And that starts with my home and what I treasure inside my home, and extends. I think everyone on this board has a sense of they're all our children, which is a humbling position to be in, and also a really beautiful invitation. So just remembering that every child in the school, in every PHM school, is somebody's treasure and our collective treasure. And then I said it earlier tonight, I think public schools as institutions are also a community's treasure. It's open enrollment, right? We welcome all children within the district that come to us. And I think that, you know, is America living up to its ideals. I think it's really hard work. I know from the insides of schools, and I have a deep appreciation for just how complicated it is to be a teacher and to be a school leader. That's, you know, it's sort of like parenting, where you think you know what it is to be a teacher, just like you think you know what it is to be a parent because you were once a child and then you become a parent and you're like, oh, I didn't know it was like this. The same thing goes for teaching. You think because you were a student, you know what it is to be a teacher until you become a teacher. You go home exhausted every night, but also, you know, knowing the sense of vocation. And our school leaders, I mean, they're like CEOs of small businesses and sometimes significantly sized corporations. And so feeling that they have people who both ask important questions to make them stronger, but also that support the importance of their work, that definitely gets me up in the morning. So it is, and I think everybody, it's, once you assume this position, you don't get the luxury of not waking up and thinking about it every day. It comes knocking on your door. So yeah, that's thanks for asking.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
There are many great offices of public service. I can't think of one off the top of my head that gives you the privilege of voting for programs that are going to directly impact the future of kids, not only your own family, but kids that you know. You'll be voting on programs for reading intervention, knowing full well in the back of your head that you know 2 or 3 fifth graders who could really benefit from that reading intervention program. School members vote on school safety initiatives, knowing full well, because we get briefed on the risks that face our schools and that your vote is being cast to keep them safe with security upgrades. You're going to cast votes as a school board member to help our extraordinary special needs department, knowing kids who benefit from our special needs department. And then atop that, as those kids advance the academic ladder, you're going to get the once in a lifetime privilege of seeing it all come together when they walk across that stage. And with that big glowing smile on their face because they beat the odds, they get to accept that diploma folder and you get to say you did it. And just to see the look of elation on their faces as life is just in front of them and you, in your own 1/7 of a way, had a meaningful contribution. I have to tell you, that's really what gets me up. So having had the opportunity to ask us questions and get feedback from the board, is there anything, Mr. Hyde, that you would like for the board to take into consideration about you, your background, or anything else that you would like for us to consider when we evaluate your candidacy?
No, sir. I appreciate the honor and the privilege to apply. And if you haven't heard you doing a good job, like I said, you guys are the reason why I moved back here. So my mom at least thanks you.
So we thank you very much for being here tonight. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
The board will stand adjourned, or stand in recess. Thank you again to the board members, administration, and public for staying with us. We'll go back on the record. It's 8:20. And the meeting of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees is back in session. Again, we welcome everybody who has joined us here in the boardroom and who is watching via our YouTube feed. We welcome you tonight. We'll move to our fourth candidate and welcome Mrs. Ashley Leader to come on up. Good evening, Mrs. Leader.
Good evening.
So Mrs. Leader, as you know, board members will ask you some questions in a few moments, but before that, we'll give you an opportunity to share some general background information about yourself with us and the reason why you were interested in becoming a member of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees.
Thank you, President Riley and the board. My name is Ashley Leader. I've been attending board meetings since May, and I have fallen in love with this process. It's been truly a journey. I want to start off by saying thank you. I've expressed my gratitude. I watch board meetings on YouTube from all over the country, and the way the leadership of this board has handled our board meetings has been absolutely spectacular, and I'm so proud and honored to be a part of this process and to be a part of Penn. There are many meetings that we could have gone very differently, and they didn't. We always remain respectful, and I truly appreciate that leadership. But I'm a mom of four Penn students. I have a senior, I have a freshman, and my younger two hopefully will be back at Penn next year. And I just have to say I'm very proud of my freshman swimmer for Penn. She scored first place in her first swim meet this past weekend. So I just want to honor her because we have a fabulous swim team and they are loving the new weight room. So I'm very impressed with that. But I am a mom of four. I've been in the Penn District for 13 years. I've been an L.C. Rogers parent. And I've been on the PTO board at L.C. Rogers for 5 years. I'm very proud of what we accomplished being on that board. We had a phenomenal team, a PTO team. And we were the team that fundraised and implemented the new playground. So the new playground at L.C. Rogers is from our PTO team. That was a huge accomplishment, and it was the highlight, honestly, of my time at L.C. Rogers on the board. You guys know, but for everyone else here, L.C. Rogers is a full Title I school. So for us to be able to raise the funds that we needed to put that playground, it just shows how incredible that school is. We also incorporated the buddy bench while we were there. If you are on the playground, you'll see a buddy bench. While I was there, we implemented that program, and it was truly amazing to see the buddy bench is a program. Well, if a kid is feeling left out or needed to play with someone, they would go sit on the buddy bench. And students immediately knew to go to the buddy bench and welcome that student or bring them along. So we were very proud of that. Also, our PTO, a highlight of our PTO was we incorporated the Helping Hands program. I don't think it still exists, but it was a remarkable program we had while I was on the PTO. And we connected with community resources, and we brought in people from Riley and Hannah's house, and they would go to our classrooms and do talks and talk to our students. Our kids would bring in toiletries for the homeless shelter. So that was a wonderful program at L.C. Rogers that we were able to incorporate while I was on the PTO board. We also had a phenomenal, I served in every position on the PTO board at LC. The highlight was being the treasurer. And it was really important to me to make sure we had a balanced budget every year, but that we were able to put away funds, because we knew from the time I got on the board, we needed a new playground. So that was always a goal, and we were able to accomplish that by the time I left the PTO. I'm also a realtor in the area. I'm licensed in Indiana and Michigan. So that's very important. I realize how important Penn is to our community. I'm constantly helping clients move here that want to be in the Penn district, that pay way over value a lot of times just to be in our district. So I know how vital we are to our community and how important it is to my families that have bought over value in Penn and want to be here. My degree is in social work. So I've been a case manager of 400 plus clients in Indianapolis. And you name it, I experienced it. My background is in mental health, so I know how important mental health is and how important it is to families and especially children, and the impact of that. I'm also have been a home study adoption coordinator for an international adoption company. I absolutely loved that job. I did a lot of traveling, but to be able to see kids actually find their forever family, it was truly a heartbeat of mine. Hopefully one day I'll be able to get back to that career because I absolutely loved it. I've also am a parent of a child with a disability. And so we have been through Penn. He's a senior. So we have been through those services. We know how remarkably he was taken care of with all of Penn services and how well he was loved on and appreciated and encouraged. And it had everything to do, especially with our services at LC. You know, kids that are able to be diagnosed in elementary school, I think is so important because they have the best services. And in LC, we had remarkable teachers and services and aides. And it never left me how much he was able to succeed in middle school and high school because of what he experienced at LC. So I've gotten to experience LC and PHM in many, many ways. So I have those are qualifications that I bring. I have a lot of experience, and I know how important PHM is.
Thank you, Mrs. Leader. So now the board will take turns asking you questions. We'll start with Mrs. Gates.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. You touched on a lot of your qualifications. Is there anything else that you would like to add that you would bring to the PHM board?
I did touch on a lot of my qualifications. I mean, you know me, you know how passionate I am. I've been to every board meeting since May. I've read policies. I've dove into curriculum and policies, and I absolutely fell in love with budgets and going to budget meetings. And I think that's what motivated me to be here. I've listened to countless stories of parents. Parents have naturally just come to me sharing their stories, and some of them heartbreaking, some of them incredible. But that was a huge motivator of why I'm here. And yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Beeler.
Mrs. Leader, what motivates you to become a school board member?
I've thought about this question a lot. And I think because I've only been coming since May, I want to ask myself, I ask myself the question, would I still be here? Just in light of what brought me here in the first place and my concerns that started bringing me here. And, I always thought it was important for me to be in our local schools, and it is. I believe in parent involvement. I believe in public education. I believe the more parents are involved in our schools, the better we are as a district. But I have seen the role you guys play, and I have gotten to experience that. And like I said before, it has been an honor to watch how you have conducted our meetings and how you've listened, and to watch this process over. And just recently, we're starting to have conversation back and forth, which I think is great in what we've been asking for. So I want to be a member because I really value your role, and it's an honor to serve our community and to serve our parents and to serve the families that want me to be here and that encourage me to be here. I just think it's an honor to give back to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leader, Mr. Beeler, Mr. Garrett.
Yes. Hi, Mr.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
So what do you see as the biggest issues facing Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation, and what can you do to help?
One of the biggest issue I face, and it's really because of the stories that I've heard from all the parents that have come to me expressing needs and desires and frustrations and struggles. And these are countless stories that I've heard from parents since May. And we keep going back to that triangle. And I so believe in that triangle. And I truly believe in the triangle because I know it works. I have been at LC under the leadership of Mr. Thompson, and it was such a valuable experience at LC, and that triangle worked. It was parents and teachers and staff and administrators. It worked at that time. And from the stories that I've heard, there are parents that feel that it's not working for them. And that really breaks my heart. It breaks my heart every time I hear it. It breaks my heart that they feel that they're not being heard. It breaks my heart that when a family decides to leave our district, that breaks my heart. And for me, when one family feels it's not working, like, that's enough. One family feels it's not working, it's enough for me to say, okay, what do we do here? How do we make this better? How do we make this connection? How do we make this whole again? And that's my motivation to be here. It's from the stories that I've listened to. And I think that's the biggest issue we're facing is parents are not feeling like they're being heard. Sadly, and let's face it, it's unprecedented times. You guys have dealt with things that boards across the country are dealing with, and it's been hard, it's been difficult. And there's been a lot of issues and a lot of conversations and a lot of stories and a lot of division. And it's been rough. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. I think we're getting somewhere. I truly feel, I feel hopeful. I feel like we're going somewhere, and that excites me, and I want to be a part of that.
Mrs. Leader, Ms. Wright.
Mrs. Leader, what do you see as your role in supporting excellence in Penn-Harris-Madison schools? I've memorized it now. In academics, maybe not, in academics, in extracurriculars, and in facilities.
Yes, you're getting better. Good for you. Yes. I know, it's okay. It's a long question.
And I will repeat that. If you
That's
want to
okay.
repeat it,
No.
because I know it's complicated.
Yes.
I'll say it later.
It is. I think I'm already doing it. I'm already supporting. I already show up. I mean, I've already been engaged. I'm already involved in academics. I've already been doing these things. So I don't know what more would change for me, except I just continue to learn, and I continue to encourage parents to be involved. And I think that's where my heartbeat is. I want parents to be involved, and I want that to be encouraged. I love our facilities. I think we do a great job in making sure that our kids are able to grow and excel and progress. And we're really good. You guys are really good at budgeting, and we're able to do those things for our kids. So to be a part of that, I mean, I'm already doing a lot of it. I just want to do more. I'm a learner. I love to learn. I love to have discussions. I love to be on a team where we're creating new ideas, and we can come together and how do we do this better? How do we make this better? Whatever it is, I love how that dynamic of everything. But I think there is a piece, again, for me, I want to make sure that the people who want me here, that have motivated me to be here, that I'm here for them, and they can trust again, and that at some point they will be able to feel like we're listening and we're taking it in, and we're going to have this two-way conversation, and they're going to feel like that, we hear their struggles, and we can celebrate when we've come to a solution, and we can create something better. And so, yeah, I mean, I've sat in board meetings, and I walk away like, wow, like we have amazing administration, amazing teachers who do amazing things, right? Like we do. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else for my children.
So Mrs. Leader, what is the role of a school board member in supporting parent and community involvement within Penn-Harris-Madison schools?
Well, the role of a school board member is to show up, right? You guys are dedicated. You show up to listen, to take in. I know there's been many of you that have been available when I had questions. I think that's important. I think it's important when we have questions and we can come to you. Again, like I said, it's important that as a board, we listen to our parents and we give them a safe space to vent or to encourage, and that they can trust us. And I think that's the most important thing right now.
Thank you, Mrs. Luther. So we've had the opportunity to ask you questions. It's your turn. If you have any questions for the board or the administration.
I feel like all the questions that I was thinking of have already been asked. Although, as a rookie, if I were to get on the board, since you're a rookie, like what was a big surprise for you? Like what was there something that you were shocked at? Or...
Oh my gosh. What a good time. I was like, I know, I came on, I mean, how, you know, we talk about our community, both in our community, this has shown me how diverse our community is, how wonderful our community is. I sit on soccer, I have friends, I'm sure we have, Mrs. Lee, I'm sure you and I have mutual friends.
Probably, yeah.
Right? So sitting on sidelines, going to the grocery store, people telling you what they think, which can sometimes be tricky. But also people that I knew maybe didn't appreciate the decision, but also knew me as a person and basically extended the grace that is also a really beautiful thing. That like, and I think you and I totally agree on, for as a wild roller coaster the last couple months have been, there's also been plenty of opportunities for us to appreciate like how we managed to navigate it somehow and stay together, even if, you know, we're a diverse community. So part of it is being, you know, there were some times where it's hard to walk into the grocery store.
Oh, wow. Especially
when things got really hard, knowing that I made some people really happy and I made other friends really disappointed.
Oh.
And that I think is, to Mr. Riley's point about having to make some really hard decisions where all the options on the table stunk.
Yeah.
And you had those things keep you up at night.
Yeah.
Literally kept me up at night. I wrestled with those. I still do, and I imagine they're going to continue. And God forbid, you know, there's going to be a time when, God willing, COVID is not something that we have to utter off our tongues. But there are a lot of issues facing schools.
Yes.
And there's a lot of competing needs and goods.
Yeah.
So I can't even remember what your original question was. I think it was like,
you're doing great.
That was a real slap in the face.
I hear you.
You know, people don't recognize me, but like if they knew me, they knew. And I would say, I don't know if you guys felt that way. I feel like people did extend. I think I had a lot of people praying for me, whether or not they agreed with me or not. You know what I'm saying? So that's tricky, but also I have 4 children. Right? So Mrs. Gates, what you said about recognizing that decisions you make sometimes don't make your own children happy.
Yeah.
Or don't. That is a privilege. It's also a burden at the same time. So, and knowing that my children were living this too with everyone else. So, but I've learned a lot too. And I deeply appreciate the colleagues in every direction up here. I've learned something from every single person. So, and again, it's a total privilege to hear the amazing things at our school, like getting a front row seat.
Yeah.
So some of that has been a joy, nothing short of a joy. Yeah. So there's a lot of good, first, nobody, I think, well, you do want to be a school board member. I think there are a lot of people think, you know, who wants to be a school board member in the year 2021, but I think that, you know, that's why I said I was so impressed by how many people applied.
For sure.
And I think that speaks to our community.
I think so too.
So it's a reassuring and lots of both ands.
Yeah.
Reassuring and difficult, joyful and a weight.
Yeah.
Mrs. Leader, I know that question was sort of.
I like it,
aimed for
yes.
Mrs. Roach. Do you have any other questions for the administration of the
I
board?
don't think so. But you guys are willing to ask me anything else.
Well, I will ask you this.
Okay.
I know you've been responsive to the questions that we've asked you, and you gave us a kind of a pre-prepared statement on why you were running. Is there anything else that you would like for us to consider when we're evaluating your candidacy?
Again, I just want to say thank you. It is an honor. This is an honor because there are amazing candidates, and I've watched the interviews tonight, and I'm thinking, oh my word, wow, you have tough decisions to make. I promise you, you get 150% from me. I don't do anything half. And I think my supporters would say that. And I vow I will give you 150%.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your application, for being here tonight, for answering our questions.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I have an answer to the question you asked, that surprised you. And by the way you answered that last question, I'm like, I probably need to say, added to this table needs to be a box of Kleenexes, because sometimes I was surprised at how many times when the teachers get up and give their presentations of what you guys do in the classroom, I'm like, is anybody else about to cry right now? Because when those kids talk and those teachers talk and they share what they're doing, it is very touching, and it's amazing to see what's going on with our kids. And
Yeah.
So.
Allergies tend to run rampant at the school board table. All right, we'll stand in recess. It is 8:40.
I gotta clean it.
My family's from Louisiana. We totally, I mean, obviously Notre Dame is our first love, but
Yeah, right.
for our family, this is kind of crazy.
No gators.
That might not be the most.
Speaking of, sorry, I'm like surprised that my.
No gators in the grotto.
Okay, we're gonna resume the session of the special meeting of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees. It's 9:05. I want to thank the board, the administration, as well as members of the public who remain with us tonight, and anybody who's watching via our YouTube feed. Welcome you back. And our next interviewee is Mr. Ryan McCullough. Mr. McCullough.
With the latest news on Kelly, I may interview for that one next. Being the freshman, one of the freshman football coaches, hopefully some experience there. Thank you, Dr. Thacker and board, faculty, staff for even considering me for this position. I am greatly honored to listen to some of the candidates tonight. Very humbled. Ryan McCullough, 1995 grad of Penn, was a student and player for Mr. Jim Garrett here. My entire life of through high school and my wife's life was in the education of Penn High School. I was a Mary Frank Mustang, Schmucker Spartan, and Penn Kingsman. I do have a Penn Kingsman pillowcase still, but not the underwear. So we still bleed black and gold in our family. In addition to that, a few of you already know my father was on the school board for several years, and I was a part of that at a young age of going to what you call rallies and social events and just trying to get the community support behind him. So that was quite an honor in my middle school and elementary school years, I believe. And my dad also served as a school teacher and coach for some of the neighboring community schools in this area. When I was, before I went to Mary Frank, he was in the Elkhart system, before that St. Joe, and on and on. So on that side of the family, lots of tradition in the Penn school system. And then on my wife Nicole's side, I'm more proud of. Her mother was a teacher of 30 plus years in the Penn system, and her grandmother before that. And I believe Dr. Thacker was a student of hers. So quite a rich history of the Penn system, and just really honored to be considered with that. So that's a little bit about myself. When I did leave the community in 95, I went out west to chase a passion and dream that was, and a goal that I was taught within the school district. You know, set your goals, go after them. Had a scholarship to go play football and ski, of all things, out in Colorado. Was a member of the U.S. ski team after that. Got in a career in sales and marketing. And when it was time to raise a family, this is where we had to move back to. So I currently have a just graduated in the spring senior who leaves tomorrow morning go back to college out in Nevada. I've got a sophomore at Penn and a 7th grade daughter at Schmucker. That's a little bit about myself as it pertains to Penn.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. McCullough. Appreciate the background. All the board members, as you know, will have questions to ask you. We'll start with Ms. Gates.
You touched on a little bit of your qualifications, but what other particular qualifications would you bring to the PHM board?
Like many before me and everyone in this room, I love to serve. That's one qualification. I've served since I stepped foot in campus in college. On an independent level, obviously my family's upbringing, we were always serving, and whether it's through church or sports or extracurricular activities, but reading to young kids in the neighboring neighborhoods of our college town was the first, kind of hook for me, and just seeing the outcome of that. And since '97, I've been serving since. I've served over dozens of high school and collegiate level outdoor activities, which is related to my profession, which I'll touch on here in a bit, across the country. Here locally, I've been involved in youth sports, from Granger Rocket football to Harris Township baseball. It's in my blood. That's what I serve. It seems like the minute a one season or program, class program, whatever it is, ends, it seems like it's the next morning, get up, put your shoes on and see what's next. In fact, this last spring, I thought with my son no longer playing baseball or being in the Penn system, my oldest being gone, I could finally take the spring off and enjoy it, and found myself coaching girls softball. And outside of one time subbing for a church softball team in the 90s, I've never played softball. So, and by June, it was probably my most favorite thing I've ever done, is just being on a completely uncomfortable level, having to learn something completely foreign to me and make it all work in a very short, limited time with a lot of new people. On a professional level, I've been with the same company for 21 years. It's an $80 million plus 95-year-old company with 16,000 items, very complex, but very rich in tradition, which has been the biggest challenge in my 11 years on their executive board and presidential staff, is how do you take a 90-year-old company and continue to conform, set goals, and manufacture, because we manufacture in the U.S., with all the things changing around us. So I've been a major part of that, and we're coming up on our 100th anniversary, and that's been an exciting profession that's taught me, most importantly, how to set goals, how to set goals and policies, really. Listen to whether it's the employees, the customers, the manufacturers that makes parts that we, finish off with, listening, researching. But I think the one quality I'm most proud of is letting the policy the process take place. Don't panic. That's what we all wholeheartedly went into as a team with that decision. And I think so many times people want instant results these days, and oh, that's not what we thought. Panic, panic, panic. And more times often than not, if a group of educated people are on the same, rowing the same way, it's eventually gonna, work out. And if it doesn't, you adapt, raise your hand and say, I made that mistake. I was part of that, and we're gonna correct it next time. So that's kind of my qualifications, along with my background.
Mr. Beeler.
Brian, what motivates you to become a student?
It started with a motivation to move back here to raise my family. 15 schools that are all at an award-winning level. It's kind of like when I was on the U.S. ski team. I wanted to be part of something a winning team, and that was probably the biggest motivation. I also feel it's the next step in evolving as my service to the community. I've done the youth. I've done some stuff outside the community. I'm currently a freshman football coach, very involved in different levels. And I think this is the next step to making a difference in the teachers' lives, the children's lives, the parents, the community. That's probably the biggest motivation. And Mr. Riley pointed to earlier, being involved with this board in one form or another, directly affected as a coach or a parent, I'm so intrigued by being able to set goals, vote on policies, do things, and then see an immediate impact within the community. That to me is just, it's grassroots. It's just an awesome opportunity. And I truly feel it's kind of a situation where it's a well set table. I'm a big believer in the triangle of success, and what a great opportunity to be involved in that and keep it moving and keep it going in the right direction and working as a team and again seeing the direct impact and results.
Mr. Garrett.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you see as the biggest issues facing Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation, and what can you do to help?
Ms. Gates had a similar answer to my question. Is I have my issues. I have my children's issues. I have what my grandmother-in-law had issues when she taught here. I think it depends who you ask. Several of the other candidates had, very high level issues. I think the biggest issue for me personally, as I look and I travel the country and I'm involved in other programs and other schools, is what's the outcome of this pandemic and how do we prepare to get kids back on the right track, to get kids caught up, to take Sarah, who may have always been a social person, been involved in extracurricular activities, but because of health concerns within her, immediate family, she's now an isolated person. And I mean, every child counts. And to me, that seems to be a big issue. I commend the board for the way they handled the pandemic. I can't imagine being part of a school district that could handle it any better and more professional. And as we inch forward out of this, how do we bring the community back? How do we make sure every school teacher and students are accounted for and that they're back at the levels that, have won, academic awards for decades in this community? And that's an issue. I think some of the biggest resources to help with that is just, testing the waters and getting back into more student-involved programs. Penn recently did a program I love that, they sold Christmas T-shirts, and the first 100 of them, you got to go to the basketball game for free. And I saw from firsthand that there was kids you'd never imagine want to go to a basketball game from, experience that they bought the shirt, and hopefully they go to the game and they're going to sit by someone who's a big basketball fanatic, and next thing they know, they're bonding, and just little grassroots programs like that of let's get the student bodies back together, whether it's at the kindergarten level, because some kids, are still, at work, doing school from home, or have been, the parents said, hey, let's just do homeschooling this year and wait for this thing to go away. And there's gonna be a point where we just need to bring everyone back, get them on the same path, and hopefully, when masks do come off, we can see smiling faces again in the hallways, and instead of lost kids that are, feel like they're behind, or man, I remember this and it used to be so much fun, but I've lost touch with it. That's one of the issues that I personally see. Some of the other issues have kind of already been touched on, Mr. Garrett, but I think vaping and drugs and alcohol are a huge issue with adolescents, children in our country. I commend Penn on how well they speak of the effects of that. Some of the things that this board has voted on and put in place, whether it's the alert systems in the bathrooms, things like that. I don't know if we're speaking to the right people, though. I think the parents need to get behind this one. I mean, we only have them for 8 hours. At night, they're riding their bikes, with friends. And I think parents need to be educated on, 3 years ago, I had to look up what a vape even was. And I feel like I'm a pretty well-rounded out there. I did hang out in the ski industry for many decades, and snowboard industry. I was like, what's a vape? I think, that's part of the issue, is looking at some of those things that are tearing our children apart. And are we educating the right, the parents? Are there support groups for them, and how we can do that? School safety is a continuing issue. I was in Colorado in 1995 when Columbine, or 96 when Columbine took place. 6 of my teammates, personally, I had friends they had to bury in the weeks preceding. One of them lost a sister. I could never imagine that happening at Penn. I again commend Penn on the way they've handled that, but what's next? It seems like mental health and people with different agendas always find ways to do harm, and how do we continue to stay first in class on school safety? Again, being conscious of budgets and all the other regulations. I'd say the last issue is, I've used the word grassroots a lot, but getting back to the grassroots of teaching some of the kids, and I think SEL has done a phenomenal job with it, but continuing in all programs. I think whether it's the coaching, extracurricular activities, but respect, accountability, discipline within our student body. I know firsthand, I'm obviously deal with freshmen athletics, and I can tell which kids understand SEL and are getting it and have good support at home. But then there's some, the minute they walk off the field, they become, someone else. And I just think we need to, again, keep focusing on some of those great programs we've set up. But I guess what I'm trying to say is take it full circle within the household, and trying to really, hey, this is what we're focusing on with your child. He's important, but he's still, being disrespectful, and really just working through some of those issues within that.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Mr. McCullough, Ms. Roach.
Mr. McCullough, what do you see as your role in supporting excellence in all areas of the school corporation as it relates to academics, extracurricular, and facilities?
Yes. I think I've hit on a couple of times. I mean, the academics here, from my lifetime of going through the system, my wife's, the peers we had, and seeing my children's 3 classes come through, no doubt top in class. I mean, I was in a boarding program for a couple winters and had private tutoring that didn't get into details and get passion from some of the teachers in our system. Kind of looking at some of the other issues though in academics, I think, okay, what's next there? What's the next technology? I can't remember how long ago it was, but when all the kids were given Chromebooks. I mean, that I still know of major schools in the Denver area and in the Detroit area that they're still 5-1, 6-1 on that kind of technology. We're first in class in that, but what's the next piece that we can give, the next tool, the next resource to continue to be excellence first in class? I don't know the answer to that. Education's not my background, but I would love to research that because I find technology in certain areas of that very intriguing. The opposite of that is what classes and what programs are we offering that have become archaic? They're not really useful anymore as streaming board members, board meetings online, and what the pandemic has taught us. There are things that, okay, we can shift that resource from this, and whether it's surveying graduating classes as they get a couple of years into their, whether it's their college life or their professional life, like, hey, what are some things you were kind of mandated to go down that path, but you've never used? I mean, I've always said I'll never use algebra in my life, but I mean, let's not get that crazy, but let's find some things where we can shift to these, these newer trends and newer ways that we're teaching kids. On the extracurricular activities, I mean, again, top in class, I think the one thing I would be excited about if I were able to be on the board would be to get involved in some of maybe the extracurricular activities that may not seem top of class, may have a declining participation, or, always finish dead last in the local contest or whatever it be. And just seeing, okay, what's the difference there? If all these other things are top in class, why are these programs not? And it could be a reading program or the chess club or whatever, but getting those extracurricular activities to where we're proud of every one of them, and every board member can go to them, just like you're going to the state championship for girls basketball. You're as excited and you think they're just as strong of a program. So that's more on the extracurricular activities, and tying into the facilities with that. Seeing Penn's facilities grow since we left in '95 and returned in 2013 was amazing. The new biology lab, the new weight room, first in class. But again, we have to keep moving to continue to stay with that excellence level. And on the facility note, I mean, I know there's some very extreme financial cost to that, but as I travel, even in the state of Indiana, you start seeing indoor field houses pop up on high school campuses. And then you look at that and you're like, wow, how could you, but then you find out their Silver Mile happens in there, rain or shine. And, the local gymnastics club gets to use it in the morning. I mean, it's just, so not only looking at for sports, but just other activities and and different facilities like that I think are the next level for where Penn set the bar. I mean, the other facilities are top notch, and what's next, you know, and always investigating that, researching it, and seeing how we can evolve to be better.
Thank you, Ms. Roche. Mr. McCullough? Mr. McCullough, how do you see the role of the school board member in supporting parent community involvement with Penn-Harris-Madison schools?
Well, I think if you want more involvement, you just have a mask vote every board meeting, and everyone will show up. And that's one way to accomplish it. But in all seriousness, I think communication is probably the biggest opportunity in getting the parent community involvement. And you know, I don't want to use other local high schools when I get that, but one example is, you know, I follow several high school Twitter accounts just to see what's going on with them. And you know, I love that some of the local high schools every Sunday night at 8 o'clock they post, here's this week's events, you know, and it's you know, staggered out. And if it's a sporting event, the ticket link's there, and it's just, I mean, we're all going a million miles an hour, and just to have those resources. I think Penn does an excellent job of communicating some of that stuff, but it's, you know, 4 here, 4 the next day, 3. Oh, did you guys hear last night what happened? Oh, by the way, chess club is having a meeting in 6 hours. Well, wife and I are at work, and you know, that's not going to happen. So I think just preparing and getting better with free technology and communication, and over time in a process, I think you can start targeting that to where it's streamlined and it's truly speaking to that household and all the things they're really involved in and want to be involved in. And there's a lot of programs out there that I've been involved with that, I mean, they're phenomenal ways to communicate and not just over communicating. I mean, I love the resource of the weekly COVID email. Here's where we're at and all that. But after about the 9th, 10th week, I stopped reading them because it was like, okay, nothing's really changing, and move on. But yet I still get it and delete a bit. How do we make that kind of stuff more relevant, where people are opening it, touching it, but how do we target to where it speaks to a family and maybe calls out a program that they truly need or want to get involved in? And that's an easy one. It's just technology and finding a media director that there's probably kids in the high school that could do it better than anyone, you know, out there. But, and how do we use those resources to just say simple messages that are targeted to people to let them know what's going on that affects their lives? I think also getting back to some of the community events and grassroots events, I've seen a really great shift in the last couple of years, and even through the pandemic, of getting student events back up to where, you know, participation is at a high level. Again, I don't think it's at every event or every program, but I do see increases in participation. I've got some great ideas on how to expand on that. You know, I think it's Valparaiso High School for their home opener every year. You bring a donation item, you come in the game for free. And they say that, I mean, 80% turnout. And it's just, the kid feels like he's being a part of something. And they show up in hundreds and thousands. So just kind of building on that, but then taking that to the parent and the teachers. There used to be bonfires here every couple of months, and just big social gatherings where they don't cost a lot, but it brings the community together. Social events, again, trying to find different things that, you know, A, are affordable for every family. B, speak to different families within different programs, and then, but trying to interact different groups, you know, where it's, you're not just the football parents and then the volleyball parents and the debate team and the swim club. It's, you know, try to do an all sports or a fall sports event. That's kind of getting the community involvement, and of course having our attendance there and letting them know there's going to be 5 board members there tonight. Please come by with any questions. We'll be there a half hour early and stay a half hour late, and we'd love to hear your comments on this and how the event went and how we can make things better. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm a big roll up your sleeves, grassroots person, especially when trying things new. Don't put a lot of money into it, but put effort into it. Try to find the cheapest way to make it a successful event and then build on it. When we first moved here, my wife and I Granger Rocket Football was $23,000 in the red. They're about to double their cost. Teams participation was dwindling. We came up with just a simple trivia night, silent auction. I worked with Dr. Thacker and Aaron on, hey, can we work on field cost and some of the resources that we're getting billed for there. And that event still goes on today, even though I've had nothing to do with it for 5 years. Costs have maintained for the last 10 years. They've added 2 teams and they're in the black financially. So, and it didn't take much. It took a week of my wife and I's effort, a lot of texts, a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of social media posts, come out and support this great cause. And we turned around a program that affects several hundred, not only male football players, but female cheerleaders. And it's a great community program. And it was just hard work and just trying something. So those are some of my thoughts and ideas on involvement with, parent community within the PHM community.
Well, thank you, Mr. McCullough. I know you had some opening remarks to introduce yourself to us, and then you responded to our questions. Do you have any questions for the board or for the administration?
Questions for the board or administration? It's a tough one being the last tonight. I've heard a lot of great questions. It was alluded to earlier, but I'm intrigued because I've obviously never sat in your shoes, but I've been in different similar, smaller micro groups how was the grocery store during the pandemic for a board member? And did you make eye contact? Did you go mask like all the way over your head?
I just said that we should have offered some like survivor challenges for you guys, and one of them was going to be, when you enter the grocery store, like, do you wear a mask? Who do you talk to? Like,
You did a lot of
what do you do?
you did a lot of online ordering.
Eye contact? So,
You guys all went grocery pickup route online.
I think Claire alluded to it earlier. The community, though, so we have a very diverse community. There's a lot of grace in the community overall.
Yeah.
At least
And I loved hearing that answer. I'm not sure who gave that in, but yeah, there was some bad, but there was a lot of good. And
more thank yous than I'm so bad.
yeah, I mean, being a son of a football coach and former board member, I think there's some restaurants we just avoided on Saturdays. Like we're just not going to go in there. And kind of adding to that is how do you separate, whether it's your neighborhood barbecue, your family Thanksgiving, where there's other maybe employees of the corporation, just having friends over for card game. I'm intrigued by that because of the excellence here, the statute, but the openness. And I don't know if anyone has a story, or I think that's, how do you go into that being the friend, neighbor, uncle, and knowing you're going to hear from one of the family members or neighbors about your latest vote or no vote?
Well, the good news is, no matter what, you will never be more than one of 7 votes. And so whenever you go to social events and people want you to be of their persuasion on whatever topic is of importance to them, as a school board member, all you can do is just listen.
Sure.
And understand where they're coming from. But at the end of the day, you're one of 7 votes. Yeah. And I think what you find in the community is once you cast a vote, yes, you are going to receive reactions. There's no doubt about that. In the build-up to casting a vote, you will receive communications, no doubt about that as well. But there's a reason why we receive so many qualified applicants for these 2 positions, is because everybody, I think, understands that at the end of the day, what other school board do you want to be on?
Mm-hmm.
This is the best school board because this is an extraordinary community. And yes, people may be upset with you for a given period of time. You may not have voted their way. But at the end of the day, this is an extremely professional, extremely courteous, extremely supportive community. And I'm very grateful for the privilege of serving on this board, and I think I can speak for the other school board members and saying they are too. You're never gonna be in a situation where you think to yourself, I feel in danger, or, you know, I feel accosted.
Sure. Great to hear. Great to hear.
One thing that I learned very quickly, I believe. That was a good question last time around. What is that's the new one. That I think very often it can sound, or maybe the silence can sound as if we have nothing to say, or that, you know, we're not listening. The one thing that's been hard for me, because I am an extrovert, is to realize that anything that comes out of my mouth as a school board member can feel as if it's coming from the entire school district.
Sure.
So one of the things I learned very quickly is that I have to be very careful about what it is I say, for fear that, you know, it sounds as if it's policy when it's just one of 7 votes. So that doesn't go in the opposite direction. I can listen to anything and everything, but I have been a lot more mindful about what I say in public for wanting to avoid creating confusion or mixed messages or those kinds of this. That's something
And I've had a degree of that in the coaching of Penn sports. It's and having kids play it, it's becomes very difficult when parents want to ask you questions.
It is true. There is never not a moment that you're a representative of Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation.
I was just gonna say, you'll get used to saying, I do not represent the board, but this is how I feel. That's a good one. Because, you know, as one person, we do not represent the board. But, you know, don't have your own opinion.
Sure.
It may not be the board's opinion, but, you know, everybody's got a, you know, that's what we are. We're 7 individuals, but yet we come, it's like a team, you know, you get people, different temperaments, talents, and convictions. They all come together in one.
Sure.
And that's what you have to do to be successful. You know, it's not always pretty, but it's usually pretty nice.
Other questions for us, sir?
I think there were some great questions earlier, so.
Listen, we appreciate everything that you've given us by way of introduction to yourself and for answering our questions. Before we let you go, is there anything else that you want us to consider as we evaluate your application? I
think I beat it pretty good in the questions you answered, but if I can only stress how great this community has been, that, I mean, literally wife and I could have picked up and moved anywhere in the country, and we never looked. I mean, maybe shame on us, I don't know, but I mean, it was move right back here and get our kids as soon as possible in the system. We had the timing worked out where we moved in the middle of a school year. And I think in most cases, we would have, especially with the education background my wife and I both have, we'd have been very nervous, like, ooh, that's not a good time, November, are you nuts? But we knew how great Penn was going to be to our children. And if I get the opportunity to serve, I just hope I can continue to grow on that and leave it much better than we found it, which is going to be nearly impossible. But those are goals, and they're not always meant to achieve, but be fun to roll up the sleeves and try to get there.
Mr. Mccullough, on behalf of the administration of the board, thank you so much for submitting your application, for coming here to interview with us tonight. We really sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you guys for the time. Thank you very much.
Hair is everywhere, man.
You have to do push-ups.
Not yet.
Okay.
There is no further business before the board, so a special meeting. I'll therefore entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
I so move.
All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed vote nay. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0, and we are adjourned at 9:36.